what does your preparation for shows look like?
I have a kind of general rule that if somebody's going to be talking about a book, I'm going to read the book. I have an ability to read very fast, so that allows me to actually move through a book really quickly. Some books I can't. I actually have to move really slow. That's one of the things that I'll always do is if there's a body of knowledge that is contained in a book, I'll always do that. Sometimes with some people, it's just they don't have a body of work, so I just trust myself. I trust myself to navigate and listen. And as I podcast, for me, I always see a forking road of possibilities. And one of the challenging things is to know, all right, I have to take one of these roads. Do I circle back to this one place where we might find ourselves in this kind of bracket for a little while? Do I indulge in that, or do I stay on the through line of the conversation? And so, but I'm always I'm staying present, but also seeing ahead to the forking paths. And I'll write out like destinations that I want to get to. And I'll just look at those destinations, and I want to make sure that one way or another, I'll find my way to those destinations.
Anchor points.
For
me, especially if it's a bigger guest, like Dispenza, I got kind of a notice. There was like 7 to 10 days before he was going to come on. I read all of his books, but like on 3 times speed on audio while I was reading it. So listening and reading at the same time. And I felt like that really allowed me to go through it and still digest it and highlight it. And I feel like it's really important to honor your guests. Like they're giving you your time, all the people that are tuning in. And
they can tell. They can tell if you've actually read their book,
of course,
and when they don't, and when you haven't. And it makes a big difference for them, and also when you don't ask the same fucking questions that everybody asks you. Like if I get asked one more time, so what made you decide you wanted to build on it? I'm like, oh my God, how many times can I answer this same fucking question?
Right.
But really good interviewers like yourself and like, some of the best out there, they will approach that, even if they're curious about that, they'll approach it in a different way. So it'll elicit a novel response. And to me, that's the territory I like to get to. I'd like to get to territory that hasn't been well-trodden.
You're like the captain of the ship as the podcast host, right? You talked about how you're present, you're listening, you want to engage to what's alive in the moment, and you're feeling to where it can go next, right? And so you're kind of the steward in this conversation. And so I just love for you to share, as you've done it so many times, obviously from episode 1 to 50 to 500, your comfort and ease that you carry within yourself, and really trust that you can rely on just the unconscious stored memory and information in yourself that you can do it. What the process of the interview, I'm just curious if you have any other more insights for guiding that process.
I would say that there's occasionally times, right, if you're podcasting, where you're going to get stuck and you're going to lose what question you had. And it's important to know and to have the experience of how you maneuver out of those situations where you get stuck, or you get into a place where some big thing erupts and it's like, oh wow, we're really off the thread of this thing, and like what to bring back. And also to make sure that if I close down a category, like let's say a guest talks about something and I want to expand that, I'm comfortable like, okay, before we go on to the next thing, let's bracket this next thing you're going to talk about. We'll circle back to it, but I want to go deeper into this one thing. Let's really explore this. But then when you make that promise that you're going to go explore that thing, do it. Like have that mental note, like you got to close that loop at some point. Don't leave the listener hanging about something, like take your time exploring what you're going to explore, but close the loop that you're going to explore. And if you find yourself in one of those kind of brain fart moments where you're like, where do I go? Like that you have something that you've patterned, a place that you could go, that even if it's a little bit non sequitur, it's like you have something stored, you have something chambered. I imagine, I'm not a comic, but I imagine comics have that as well, where they could get in a flow, but they always have some fallback joke. Maybe it was from some old material or something like that, but they got something chambered and ready that and maybe it could be even a question that you ask multiple different guests, right. And so to have that ready, so if you get in a position where you're stuck, that you're not worried. Like know that you have a plan.